De-dollarization is a big term. Is that really what's going on? Or are we talking about deregulation and re-regulation? Is that really what's going on? Well, let's look at this together for a little while. First of all, let's take a little view of what the world will look like in the next 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. Where are we actually heading? Well, a short distance from now, in the year 2030, the GDP per capita is going to be around $14,000, according to the IMF. That will be unevenly distributed, but it's still quite a lot of money per person, more money than ever before. That money and economic security is causing women to choose to have fewer children. We today have 8 billion people approximately on the planet. Over the next 40, 50, 60 years, we will add 4 billion people to the current 8 billion. And the way that we're going to do that is by stretching out our lives. So that growth is going to come from people in the 15 to, say, 70-year age bracket. People will live longer, they will eat better food, they will be more healthy. Additionally, in all the major markets, women are coming into the workforce more and more. Female empowerment is really happening. So we're seeing a big shift, therefore, in terms of how much work people do to the major markets, which are plus or minus 30 degrees around the equator. That's where the dominant economic and other power will lie in the future. Big change. Okay, so let's look at a simple example. Here's my bet. My guess is that in the year 2040, Germany will advertise in the Philippines to attract Philippine tourists to come to Berlin. That's how big I think the shift will be. It's a big change that's coming our way. And these strong countries that are developing have their currencies. Indian rupee by way of example. India now the world's most populous country. These additional strong currencies in non-autocratic countries will in the future add possible additional reserve currencies into the marketplace. That hasn't happened yet, but it will do. So what does de-dollarization really mean? Well, there are three aspects of being a global reserve currency. One is that central banks, sovereign wealth funds, and state banks keep large amounts of money inside your system. That's one aspect. The next aspect is to provide a tradable currency. And the third one is, okay, in which account currency is your money? Is your MT4 account or an MT5 account in USD or some other currency? Well, there's not a big move by the central banks, sovereign wealth funds, or state banks to move anything out of the dollar yet. There are some shifts, some adjustments, but that's really not the big thing that's going on right now. Traders, they might choose the yen or gold as safe havens in short-term trading, but that's not a reserve currency, that's a trading strategy. And in terms of people making payments, well, people use euros, GBP, RMB, whatever, in order to make deposits and withdrawals and so forth. And in fact, if you look at STARTRADER, we have around 200 payment methods today. People deposit and withdraw in all types of currencies from STARTRADER. If you look at the SWIFT messaging system in Belgium, you can see on the right on this slide that, okay, roughly 40% is dollars, and then you have some other currencies as well. Right. So, okay. So where is this really heading? Well, let's just play around this for a little moment. STARTRADER could become a bank. We have a sufficient customer base to launch banking services. Putting together a banking user interface and experience is something we can do. It's something we do all day, every day. So we can create a banking product. That's not a problem. In terms of licenses, there are many licenses we could use. There are license providers worldwide that we could use because we're cloud-based. We're remote in the way that we operate. So we could become a bank if we wanted to, but we don't want to. And at least not at the moment. And one of the reasons is that I have a little bit of experience about the complexities of remote banking and banking as a whole. I left Nokia in 1998 because I had written business cases for bundling music with phones, email and that sort of thing with phones, and banking with phones. I wanted Nokia to shift up and provide application-level services in 1998. And I got a flat no from my colleagues, which is fine. My colleagues felt that the company should focus on being a platform for cellular network operators, where the cellular network operators or carriers, the carriers would be developing services instead. Okay, but in my view, the carriers did not have the critical mass required to develop advanced services. So I didn't see that as possible. The carrier market was too fragmented. So I looked at music, I looked at email and so forth, and I looked at banking. And in banking, I found Citigroup. Citibank at the time was the world's biggest bank. I looked at their customer base and I thought, okay, here is a company where this company does have the critical mass to launch mobile banking worldwide. And I phoned up CEO John Reed and was delighted to note that he took my call. The call was fewer than 60 seconds long. John simply said, okay, let's do it, and passed me on to Ed Horowitz, who at the time was head of the Advanced Development Group. Now, the Advanced Development Group was the unit within Citigroup that developed the first ATMs and launched them in 1977. So I thought, this makes sense. Okay, and with John Reed at the top, who really was a man who understood retail banking, could be done. Well, I joined, and a short time afterwards, the Citigroup focus changed, and I left the company. John Reed left the company. Now, retail is detail. If you don't focus in retail, then it's the wrong place to be. People will eat your lunch, and that's pretty much what happened to various Citigroup country operations when John Reed stopped providing his focus on retail to the bank. Citigroup has since sold most of its global various country operations. There's deep focus from that area. Okay, so what's going to happen next? Well, Apple might step in, or maybe Samsung might step in. Apple could do it. Apple is huge in the United States, huge in the EU, and huge in China in terms of sales, with corporate presence very heavily in the US and in China. So it could partner, as it has done with banks in the US and in the other large markets, in order to provide banking services. It could do. Okay. Samsung is different. Unlike Apple, Samsung does not have a huge domestic market that it can rely on. Well, it can rely on its market, but South Korea is only 60 million people. That's below critical mass. So you need a larger domestic market if you're going to have that as your consumer base. So Samsung makes its business successful elsewhere. Notably in China, Samsung has over a 30% mobile phone market share in India. So India is a big market for them. So Samsung is very strong in these major markets where there's business to be done in the future. Very, very strong. So Samsung's approach to banking may very well be to take multiple licenses in multiple jurisdictions and then use remote banking as the basis by which to bundle banking services with its mobile phones. That's very possible, very, very possible. It's not easy, but these are the sort of regulatory situations that are turning up, and the opportunity for Samsung to enter banking is appearing. Yeah, fine, it could do it in the major markets, but in the current major markets, but in the future major markets, Samsung's opportunity to use the new regulators and so forth is huge. Very well positioned for that. So in summary, I think new regulators and new regulations enable companies like Samsung and STARTRADER to enter new services. In the case of Samsung, they might go into banking. We're not going to do that, at least not in the near term. Okay, so let's go back to these major markets for a moment. So 5 billion out of the 8 billion people on the planet today live in the markets that I'm calling major markets. In the future, we will add 4 billion people to the 5 billion people. So it's going to be very large. Good. And when the market is large enough, you can start to target specific segments. In this slide, you can see 2 cameras. Because the markets are big enough, there's room for both of these camera companies to offer their cameras in those markets. The market is big enough. And when these new services appear, Samsung's cameras have not knocked out Nikon's cameras out of the business. They live side by side. So new services can either push out old services, alternatively, they can live side by side. Both of these are possible. But from a regulatory standpoint, this is extra interesting because we're seeing new regulators come in with new regulations. They are living side by side with the old regulators. And it creates a new situation for people who operate businesses because instead of only being able to go to one regulator to get their license, they can actually choose between many regulators in order to make their business successful. That's a change. Now, de-dollarization, in my view, therefore, will be a consequence of major market growth. As these major markets in the currently 5 billion people out of 8 billion people, as those major markets become financially strong, and therefore strong in other ways as well, there will be new currencies that become so strong that they can actually act as a reserve currency. We're not there yet, but it will happen. But the big thing is this major market growth. Major markets will have reserve currency candidates, and tradability will be achievable because a lot of these markets are non-autocratic markets where the currencies are openly tradable. So that will happen. From a customer's perspective, customers will be offered accounts in whatever currency they wish, and customers will make deposits and withdrawals in whatever currencies they will. It will be a mixture of all of these things. There will be fragmentation. What does that look like from STARTRADER's perspective? Well, Khalid, Dayu, and Lucas are 3 of our customers that I know really well. Khalid, born in 1965, old guy like me, he's been very successful. Dayu, young woman, very, very social. Lucas, quite an instinctive guy, super technical, 3 different people, different trading characteristics. They want fund security, they want a trusted brand, and they want people to deal with, human beings to deal with that they can trust. And we do business. To them, they just want the right deal. They want to be able to deposit in their own currency, withdraw in their own currency. They want us to take care of fund security, segregated accounts, and so forth. And we do that for them. What the reserve currency is, not relevant to them. That's not the key thing. Regulation, they trust STARTRADER to provide the right regulation for them so that they can do their business. They want to trust us, they can trust us. So What does it look like in the future? Well, there's freedom. We're free to do business in major markets. We can really do this. There's an incredible opportunity. The regulatory fragmentation means that we can tailor-make the regulatory framework in such a way that we can offer the best possible service to our customers. That's new. So I would not focus on the de-dollarization as the big trend right now. The de-dollarization trend is absolutely happening, but that's a long thing caused by a shift from the old world to the new major markets. That's a slow shift. It's a very large shift, but it's a slow shift. The shift which is happening very quickly now is the shift from having one or two regulators in the old world to having many regulators in the new world. That's the big shift. Let me take these four people as an example. I asked them, what clothes are you wearing? And they laughed. And then I asked, okay, what brands are you wearing? And they were able to go through the brands that they were wearing at the time. There were a couple of pairs of socks that remained unbranded, but just a quick question, and they were able to name the brands that they were wearing. I then asked them, where have your clothes been produced? And they were not able to answer the question. Now, I would guess that some of those clothes would be made in Thailand, major manufacturer of clothes. Thailand sells primarily into China, into Japan, into the United States. Very large manufacturer of clothes, so probably some of those clothes were made in Thailand. However, they didn't know. Those clothes that they're wearing only exist because they were produced. So the production location is very important. But from their perspective, they trust the brand to pick the production location, as opposed to first checking out the production location. I think the same is happening in the world of trading. People trust the brand to pick the right regulators for the brand. So the production location is very similar to the regulatory location. You must have production because otherwise you don't have clothes. You must have regulation because otherwise you don't have a financial service. But exactly which one? No. The customers decide. The customers decide what they want. In terms of payments, well, in all cases, it does not have to be paid in USD. I'm sure that a lot of the companies that pay Thai companies for their clothes use multiple different currencies in order to make those payments. And we have similar situations. Our customers have their favorite currencies to pay in. They have their favorite currencies to withdraw into. Good. It's our job to support them with what they want. That's no problem. We serve in our customers' currencies. That's what we do. So, I hope I haven't disappointed you, but I'm very serious when I say that de-dollarization is a very important global trend driven by the shift from the old world to the new major markets. It's not a quick process, it's a process that will take a long time. However, the shift to a new regulatory landscape where we have multiple regulators worldwide for cloud-based businesses, and most companies today are going cloud-based, that is profound. Because cloud-based businesses can use regulators worldwide in order to do their business. The focal point is on the fragmentation of regulation, not on de-dollarization. Thank you.